Superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil. Kumintuntum Perkun.
Oh, hello and good evening. Welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from a news about Desawe Kanda. Also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Okanse. We're also on 3 News on YouTube. Coming up tonight, government releases 855 million cedis to pay cocoa farmers as majority in parliament backs sweeping reforms to revive cocoa board and the cocoa sector largely. Stay with us. Isaac Adongo has been speaking. We'll get a bit more into it and find out from the LBCs if they've received their monies as yet. Government proposes changing the name of the National Intelligence Bureau, that's the NIB, to the Bureau of National Investigation or Intelligence. In fact, this was the original name as a BNI before it was changed to NIB. This is contained in the new security bill that was laid in Parliament earlier today. There's some debate on it, plus other issues within that particular bill. Stay with us. A former Minister of Defense is going to be joining us. We have a security analyst who's going to be joining us. We'll have a conversation. Also tonight, the Ministry of Education is warning students teacher assault will attract severe consequences as perpetrators face arrest, prosecution, and conviction. As always, you're an integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Connect with us. Let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
The majority in Parliament has rejected calls for a bailout for cocoa farmers despite falling global prices. Finance Committee Chairman Isaac Adongo said government has released 854 million cedis to clear arrears owed to farmers after months of delayed payments by licensed buying companies.
The government has released 855 million for the purposes of paying those outstanding obligations. We have decided to introduce a number of reforms, but those reforms that we are introducing are reforms that are long overdue. The cocoa sector has been under enormous strain over the years, and we have pretended to be servicing cocoa farmers, when in fact what we have done is to destroy the vehicle that we are using to support the cocoa farmers.
Organized Labour says it will engage government and cocoa board management over measures to address challenges in the cocoa sector. Deputy General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, Dr. Pascal Kaba, argues that pay cuts alone will not resolve the board's problems and is urging broader stakeholder consultations.
There's need for there to be broader stakeholder consultation between the parties that have to do with government, cocoa board itself, and the unions in terms of looking at win-win solutions to resolve the issues. There are certain welfare issues, there are certain motivational issues, there are certain things which when the three parties sit, we can see what are the cuts we can put in place, what are the measures we have to put in place to ensure efficiency but still reduce expenditure.
A joint operation by the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority and National Security has intercepted 12 of 18 articulated trucks allegedly evading taxes worth over 85 million cedis. The trucks were declared as transit goods from Akano to Niger through Kolungugu, but were moving without the required customs escorts. Following the death of a 29-year-old man allegedly denied emergency care due to the no-bed syndrome, the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Samuel Kaba Akwaria, has directed all facilities to administer first aid before referring patients.
Already we've given some directives. All hospitals should always, no matter the situation, receive the patient, give first aid, and be responsible to call the next facility for referral.
The Military High Command has assured residents in border communities of its readiness to counter the terrorist threats following a recent attack near Ghana's northern border with Burkina Faso. During a visit to the 37 military hospital, where 3 survivors are being treated, the command called for heightened vigilance.
And the Military High Command, led by Lieutenant General William Ejapong, that's the CDS, and the service chiefs, deemed it appropriate to come and see the injured and check how they are doing, and also to give directives to the 37 Command to give their best so that our colleagues can heal and join us.
Meanwhile, MPs clashed in Parliament over the attack that left 8 Ghanaian traders dead. NDC MP Samuel Atta Mills criticized the NPP over what he described as the failed Polugu irrigation dam project, prompting protest from the minority, who earlier demanded a parliamentary inquiry.
Your former flag bearer, who's now your new flag bearer, went on TV and said the best thing he has ever done in the north was the Polugu dam. This Polugu dam was supposed to help us irrigate some land. We spent $12 million US, and we don't have anything to show. If this dam has been built, we would have been able to grow our tomatoes up north.
It's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. As always, probably brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Simply superior. Sasso insecticide spray and coil. Tum Preco. Coming up next on Ghana Tonight. Government proposes changing the name of the National Intelligence Bureau, that's the NIB, to its former name of Bureau of National Intelligence. Now, previously investigations, and it's now still maintaining the status of intelligence in there. This is contained in the new bill. It was at the center of debate on the floor of Parliament earlier today, as government has proposed this particular change name, essentially arguing the current abbreviated NIB. So take note of this. One of the major issues was the abbreviation. NIB is often mistaken for the National Investment Bank, right? The Security and Intelligence Agency's bill is also, amongst other things, seeking to place national security coordination under the presidency while effectively scrapping the Ministry for National Security, because that's now doesn't have a substantive minister, or this administration did away with it. So that's defunct, essentially. But minority MPs have kicked against the proposed reforms in the bill, describing it as flawed and overly centralizing power in the National Security Coordinator without adequate safeguards. I just want to take you back to Parliament and recall the debate that happened on the floor. We have a conversation with a former defense minister, the member of Parliament for the Bimbela constituency, the Honorable Dominic Nitiwol, is joining us right now on Zoom. We also have a former operative of the BNI, Richard Kumar, is going to be joining us. So let's take a look at what happened in Parliament earlier today. Take a look.
Unfortunately, we have a situation where when you say NIB, people are wondering whether you're talking about the bank or you're talking about the security agency. So, Mr. Speaker, one of the significant things that we are trying to do is to reintroduce the name BNI, but this time even though the BNI of yesterday was Bureau of National Investigation, this BNI will still remain Bureau of National Intelligence. If you are not careful, you create conflict between a detailed ministerial role and the function of the National Security Coordinator, because it's supposed to coordinate all the activities within the space. So one of the things that we are trying to do is to keep this position as more or less of that of the president, and then he gets one of his ministers to play that oversight without the necessarily fine detailed designation of a minister for national security, so that as much as possible you try to avoid the conflict between the minister and the national security coordinator.
The memorandum before us does not provide any empirical evidence to suggest that Act 1030 has failed. It appears that this bill is more founded on partisan political interest than a national security interest for good governance. What is being proposed? So much power is being given to the coordinator. It is not clear how his powers are going to be fettered. Mr. Speaker, my submission is that if you give such powers to the coordinator and you do not provide for a clear path of responsibility, accountability, and oversight, it becomes problematic to you yourself as a government. And when the rights of citizens are being abused, the man will come and tell you that in the name of national security, there will be the need for the minister to sit with us as a house, do further winnowing, and incorporate the major concerns raised by the minority on this floor.
For the clients, when they finish, they say, my lawyer spoke. The way my lawyer cannot. Did you see the way my lawyer was talking? The other lawyers in the courtroom know that he said nothing. I have listened to all that my friends on the other side have said, and I cannot hear anything. We indeed cut down the number of ministers. The decision to amend this. And among the ministries that we decided to guillotine was the Minister for National Security. The fundamental thing about this bill is to revise the existing legislation and take out the imposition of a Minister for National Security. What you did here is to force the hand of a president so that he must appoint a Minister for National Security. It was a wrong thing for us to have done as a parliament. And this historical wrong has to be corrected. And that's what we are doing today. We are correcting the wrongs of the NPP government.
So that's Honorable Mama Yarega, the Majority Leader, Boko Central Member of Parliament, ending excerpts of that debate on the floor of Parliament earlier today. Dominic Nitiwol, the Honorable Dominic Nitiwol, is the Member of Parliament for the Bimbela constituency and a former Defense Minister. He's joining us on Zoom right now. Honorable, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Kindly unmute for me.
So good evening, and good evening to your cherished listeners on the respected TV thread.
Great. Dominic Nitiwol, so I start off from where the Honorable Mama Yarega ended, that this ministry in charge of national security is a defunct ministry now, because this administration essentially did not appoint a substantive minister. They did away with that ministry. So this bill, according to Mama Yarega, is seeking to, as it were, correct the wrong that was done, in his words, or restore what was the case, so that the powers given to the defunct minister in charge of national security now would be distributed, or essentially given to the national security coordinator. What exactly is the issue there?
So first of all, the issue of the Minister of National Security or Minister of National Security has not been the point that we're facing, not at all. In fact, Etiku Kwachi was the first under our republic, the fourth Republican Constitution. Then our good friend under President Kufuor also came before Kandapa. So there've been three of them. So that's not the issue. What we are saying is that the memorandum of the bill will normally follow the main bill and explaining why they need to change. When you look at the memorandum, we're very clear in our mind that there is no need for a new bill. The government essentially is saying that, look, you need not to create a Ministry of National Security by statute. That's by law. You create by executive instrument or something. And so they want to take that one out. They could have just brought an amendment to Act 1030 to take off the Minister for National Security. And we're not asking them to appoint a Minister for National Security, not at all. So they could have done an amendment to take it out and also take out the role of the Chief Director. So all they needed to do was to bring an amendment to Act 1030 to take out the Minister of National Security, also take out the role of the Chief Director, and we will not have any problem. So if you look at what they are doing, it's essentially Act 1030. There's no difference at all. In fact, if we did not do the correction, what we call an amendment to the bill they brought, it will have created more problems. When you Google or you go to any place and you Google the role of the Bureau of National Investigation, as they want to call it now, or the NIB as in our time, Bureau of National Intelligence, you will realize that this is their role, this is their function specific to them. The same thing as research, who do the same thing as research. You will have their role, their unique function, and then just as the Bureau of Communication, they too will have the same thing. So for us, we are very clear in our mind that there was no need to a new bill. All they needed to do was do an amendment to Act 1030. Look, we just amended the old bill.
I see.
Since 1997.
But will the amendment, as you're saying, and not a replacement essentially, take care of the realignment of the powers given to the ministry in charge of national security? Would that amendment have done that? Because I look into it and following the debate, we would have seen that now the powers given to the Minister of National Security, majority of it is going now to the National Security Coordinator, is it not?
I'm saying that the National Security Coordinator has always done the role of coordinating the intelligence agencies. Because you remember one thing, defense intelligence is not under national security. Police intelligence is not under national security. What you have is the external intelligence, which is the research, and then the internal intelligence, which is the NIB. So these are those that directly work under national security. There should be a body or an individual organization that coordinates all of them, so that you have one intelligence that the president can be on top of. And that's the role that the National Security Coordinator was doing. He was supposed to coordinate everything and make sure that the intelligence agencies are coordinated. Defense intelligence will still remain at defense. The issue of police intelligence will remain at Ministry of Interior, and then the others will remain where they are. And he remains the coordinator. So just amending it wouldn't have been a problem. If they had decided that, or would they have, that they don't need the Minister for National Security, use an amendment and take that one off. There's a role of a chief director. You take that one off. And if you think that you want to add a specific role to the security coordinator that is currently not having, or specify his role, you do the amendment to Act 1030, and then you don't have any problem. We are saying that it's superfluous. The current thing they are trying to do is superfluous. And it risks the situation where every government comes and they need to bring a new bill, which is not good for us at all. In fact, the current bill is just a replica of the Act 1030, except that they're taking out the minister, taking out the chief director, and redefining the role of the coordinator. And I argued on the floor of Parliament that, look, you will have the coordinator is an officer of the National Security Council. Look, listen very well. He's an officer of the National Security Council. So he works through the National Security Council, but also coordinates the security agencies, and you need that as well. Two, you don't want to create an agency, which they have agreed, and they are not pursuing that matter. You don't want to create an agency out of that office. which they have agreed that they are not going to do that. So there's no real change in the bill. That's why we are asking, what is the actual need for a new bill? Nothing, except to take out the minister, to take out the chief director, and to give extra rule to the coordinator, which we thought that an amendment to the old bill could have sufficed.
So that was the question I was asking.
Instead of doing a complete new bill.
And so that was the question I was asking, if an amendment can take care of all of these three issues that you have raised. Because, for instance, one of the other issues that the Interior Minister raises, because it is under him that he essentially set the ball rolling earlier today in Parliament, that, for instance, the confusion in the change with the name NIB, and then the reason why that name has to be changed, that's number one. And then now we have a defunct Ministry of National Security. So all of this, an amendment could have taken care of that, including the concerns of Parliament not having oversight of the National Security Coordinator, one of the concerns that the Minority Leader raised?
So what the Minority Leader raised is the current structure of the bill they are bringing. Parliament will not have oversight.
If you could sit up a bit for me and face the camera.
What I'm saying is that the Minority Leader, what the concern he raised is that the nature of the current bill they are bringing, Parliament will not have oversight. But it's taken care of by the fact that there will be a minister responsible for national security. In fact, the president will assign any minister. The president can assign the defense minister to take up national security. The president can assign the interior minister to take up national security, or he can assign a minister of state to take care. That is been taken care of. That's why I said that the four things that they want to do, which is one, to take out the ministerial role and the chief director's role, that's one. Two, to give some extra powers to the coordinator, not the ministerial powers, some particular powers to the coordinator. Three, to be able to change the name. And then four, to assign a ministerial, a minister to national security. That could have been done by amendment. So for us, we don't see why a new complete bill is being made. Meanwhile, it changes nothing. If you compare the two bills, apart from these four things, the rest are virtually the same. They're virtually the same. So that's why we say that it is not necessary to have change. They could have done that. We agree with them that if the government thinks that there's no need to keep a minister, they can take it off. Even though we think that it could have been there. But if you're not appointing a minister, why keep it? So they want to take it off. That's their prerogative. You cannot argue about that with the government. We are also saying that, look, keep the role of the coordinator as it is to coordinate the activities of the intelligence agencies. And four, also ensure that if you want to change the name, then change the name well, so that it doesn't bring any problem. We don't argue with that, but we are saying
if you say they should change their name well, what do you mean? What exactly do you mean?
So what I'm saying, they should change the name well is just to bring an amendment and say, look, this is a nature, so clause, this, that name change from National Intelligence Bureau to Bureau of National Intelligence. It's just changing the way that it's the same three words, okay, but their positioning is what is changing. That's all, nothing else.
All right.
They are the same three words.
Yes,
Bureau of National Intelligence and Bureau of Intelligence, the National Intelligence Bureau. It's just the change of which one comes first. Is it the intelligence or the bureau? That's all, nothing else. The end stage is the I and the D that changes, nothing else.
That's true.
That shouldn't warrant a new bill.
Well, one person who served under that previous name, which is now not an investigation, but now changed to intelligence, essentially broadening the scope of the work of the BNI, is Richard Komado. He's joining us on Zoom as well. The Honorable Dr. Niti will kind of stay with me. Mr. Komado, so listening to the former defense minister, it clearly gives a pointer, does it not, as to what exactly the point of departure was, whether or not with the current administration doing away with the Minister of National Security, they necessarily had to bring a bill to correct the wrong, as the majority leader indicated, and now allocate those powers given to the defunct minister back to the National Security Coordinator to do more than just coordination. Do you see any concern there?
Definitely, yes. If there was no concern and there was no need for a new bill, they wouldn't have passed one and placed it before Parliament. Remember, the Intelligence Act was fixed. MPP changed it to the 1030. And the question we're asking then was why a new bill and why the new change of name? And I think it's a position of policy and ideology. If you go back to when President Kufuor was the president, Francis Poku was the Minister of National Security. Then President Mills and President Mahama, Gbagbo became the security coordinator. Then later Yadoko became the security coordinator when Gbagbo moved to the African Union. Then NPP comes to power again. Kandapa became the Minister for National Security. Then NDC is in power and Razak Osman is the National Security Coordinator. We don't need a soothsayer, a prophet to tell us that these two parties run the National Security Secretariat differently. NPP believes in the minister, the NDC believes in the National Security Coordinator with the security advisor. The at 1030 we have, what they are trying to do is to take away the position of a minister and make sure that it runs with their national ideology. And that has been a perfect way to go because the name change is created a problem. Names have value, names are symbolic in nature, and names have identity. And so can you imagine an operative standing before a reception at a hotel, want to do a quick check, and you mention NIB, and they think it's coming from a bank for deposit. And that puts some lives in danger because of the name change. I think what we are trying to do now is one, to streamline the coordinator's role, and number two, to put up a frontier that ensures that national security activities are coordinated within the structured form. And in that way, it looks more strategic, in my opinion, and it looks more sound, and it looks more streamlined, to my estimation. And I think that is where we are going. If there are core issues in there, they can do the politicking, but we are operators, and we want it to be done properly. So I think that we are on course, and it has to be done.
I see. And on the bit about the oversight as well, because you have worked in the previous structure of the Bureau of National Investigation. Now, we're learning of the expansion in the scope of its work now, not just about investigation and coordination, but also intelligence. This change, the proposed name change from NIB to BNI, is still maintaining the intelligence arm in there a bit more expansively. Taking into consideration what you served in and where we are going now, how does this strike you?
And this whole confusion would have been resolved without this whole brouhaha of politicians having to have a bite and create all manner of trouble within the space. No, if you follow this space for a very long time, and you have done this job just like some of us have done over 2 decades, one of the key outcomes of investigations is intelligence. So we've always maintained that intelligence and investigations are intertwined. What the NPP does predominantly, they want a dominant force where the BNI should not perform investigations and they should just be collecting intelligence in that regard. Because some people believe that the BNI should not play a role of investigations. And some of us disagree to say that you cannot be collecting intelligence when you are not investigating specific cases. And when you look at all over the world, best practices, MI5, MI6 in the UK, the name has not been changed and they maintain that position. When you look at the FBI and the CIA, the name has not been changed and they maintain that position. And it's a well solid of a national organization until certain things went wrongly and eventually the name got changed. Whether you are talking about National Investigations of Intelligence or National Bureau of Investigations, they are going to do the two concurrently. And that is where the strength of what they do comes in. And that is where they help the National Security Coordinator in ensuring that your national sovereignty guarantees are achieved and security intelligence is made available to policymakers and decision makers at the highest level of political governance and security governance to ensure that our nation is safe. If you take these powers from them and you say they should just be collecting intelligence for somebody to be interpreting that and taking decisions, you might be putting us in a trivial position and you will jeopardize everything. Then if you look at the structure we run, when they go for National Security Council meeting, there's a representative from the police, there's a representative from the army. All the National Security Council institutions make a representation at the National Security Council, and the National Security Coordinator chairs that meeting. In the case of NDC, where they have a National Security Advisor, and you have a minister responsible for national security, you might be jamming up the space. And I agree with Honorable Mutapa when he says that let us not take that position unto ourselves and create many more problems in who becomes the boss and who take what decisions. I think let's keep it straightforward. Let's keep it simple. Let's maintain that the National Security Coordinator coordinates activities of all National Security Council institutions, which includes the police, the military, the immigration, and all other ones that comes to the core. And once we do that, we will be putting ourselves in a stronger position to defend the integrity of this country.
Regis Kumado, thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Is a former operative of the Bureau of National Investigations, which is now the proposal to have that name changed for National Intelligence Bureau to Bureau of National Intelligence, now BNI. We'll see how things play out on the floor of Parliament, but this is Ghana Tonight, and also joining us earlier was the Honorable Dominic Netiwo, the Bimbela Member of Parliament and former Minister in charge of Defense in the ex-Wild Akufo-Addo administration. But away from issues of security and matters arising, let's go back to this matter of cocoa farmers and the monies owed them. Because earlier today, and that's what's coming up next, government has released over 850 million cedis to pay the licensed cocoa buying companies, and they would eventually pay these cocoa farmers. And if you recall, one of the major issues that has been a matter of conversation over the last at least almost 3 weeks gone by is cocoa farmers who are owed money. The majority in Parliament has dismissed calls for a bailout for cocoa farmers, and may say a reduction of the prices of the commodity on the international market. Chair of the Finance Committee of Parliament, Isaac Adongo, says government has released 854 million cedis to settle arrears owed to cocoa farmers following the recent payment crisis that left many producers unpaid for months, despite delivering their produce to the buying companies. Take a look.
We have heard a lot of comments from our colleagues, and they have tended all of a sudden to pretend as though they are the people who love the people of Ghana, when Ghanaians were very clear that they were enemies of Ghana and didn't want them near the Flagstaff House anymore. The bottom line of all that has happened is that some amounts were owed to cocoa farmers, and the government took a decision to repay those monies so that the cocoa buying companies can settle those outstanding obligations. I'm happy to report to you that this morning the government has released 855 million for the purposes of paying those outstanding obligations. But permit me to say, ladies and gentlemen, that we have decided to introduce a number of reforms. But those reforms that we are introducing are reforms that are long overdue. The cocoa sector has been under enormous strain over the years, and we have pretended to be servicing cocoa farmers, when in fact what we have done is to destroy the vehicle that we are using to support the cocoa farmers. When Cocoa Board had 286,000 bales of jute sacks sitting at the port, they only went and cleared 91,000 of them and left the rest at the port. Meanwhile, they also had 75,000 bales of jute sacks. So add that to what is in the port. They had enough to last them another 3-4 years. But just a few days before they left office, they went and contracted and paid 48 million to bring in 80,000 bales of jute sacks. These are reckless people. If it was possible in the days that we were shipping people, these are people that we have to line up and tell cocoa farmers, it is the conduct of these people that denied the government of Ghana the resources to properly take care of you at this point in time. So that we'll give everybody a cane. Cocoa farmers will ship you in tow.
Oh, that's Isaac Adongo there. He's the chair of the Finance Committee of Parliament. Well, this is the picture, the reason why he says these reforms are necessary, because the combined strength in terms of the production of cocoa between Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana is 65% of the world's cocoa these two countries produce. But there's something that's happening right now, from what we're learning from the Reuters news agency. This reduction in the price of cocoa on the world market, as we have seen, it continues to tumble. Now under 3,650. So it's not one that is looking good. And as a result, when Ghana decided now, as a result of all of these debts, and that's what you hear Isaac Adongo talk about, the reforms that were introduced, including the reduction in the price paid to cocoa farmers. Section of cocoa farmers are not happy about this particular development because of what we're showing you right now. This is the first time they're experiencing something of a sort. The finance minister, exactly a week ago, gave reasons why this measure is important, because they had to reduce the price to attract buyers. What we're learning now is that Cote d'Ivoire is also considering going on the same path of reducing prices so that the cocoa beans will also attract the buyers. But as we see now, with what is happening in Cote d'Ivoire, the government was quite clear. Even if the cocoa buyers, as the cocoa beans buyers, are not buying, don't reduce the price. But we've seen a reduction in the prices of 23% in Cote d'Ivoire in terms of the price per bag. But this is at the black market. We are seeing something that, in fact, is playing out that is rather attracting a lot more of concern as to what the government of Cote d'Ivoire has to do in response. If you look at the reduction that we have seen in Ghana as against what happened in Cote d'Ivoire, the difference of about 307 Ghana cedis. Now, the response policy of Cote d'Ivoire possibly mulling the idea of going on the path of Ghana is one that brings another dimension of the conversation. But for the licensed cocoa buyers, this announcement of almost $1 billion Ghana cedis being paid to them is one that we want to find out how they're receiving this. Samuel Adimado is the president of the Licensed Cocoa Buyers Association. He's joining us on Zoom right now. Adimado, good evening.
Good evening, my brother.
If you could,
I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you, but if you could speak up a bit for me, because
yes,
I would assume that hearing that there's almost $1 billion is being paid to you, it should be some good news. So please speak up a bit for me.
Yes. Thank you, Okansi, and thank you, viewers. Yes, we have been notified of the payment of 850 million. Yesterday, initial tranche of 237 million also were paid, and in total it's about 1.1 billion, which will go a long way to settle the farmers that we have not paid. So first of all, we say thank you to Cocoa Board management. Okay. But I would also indicate that when you look at the amount involved in cocoa business, is quite huge. So we are always in constant touch with Cocoa Board, and Cocoa Board, with this payment, they are still going to look round, let me use that word, or they are still going to look within their scope and then make sure that as much money as they can get so that we settle the farmers. Kindly, I would also like witness to know that we have not stopped buying. We are still buying from the farmers because the season is still on. We are still in the main crop season. We'll move to the light crop season. So we are still buying. So we'll continue to encourage Cocoa Board to do so or do the needful as they have been doing. I must also indicate, I keep on repeating myself that it wasn't ground zero. We did not stop buying and we have been buying continuously. So a section of the farmers who have not received their money, we've informed our purchasing clerks to make sure that those LBCs that receive part of this 1.1 billion should quickly go to the field and settle the farmers. We are also doing assessment to find out from our members whose profile is huge, so that we would discuss with Cocoa Board and see how we also address it. So in a nutshell, let me thank Cocoa Board management.
But just on that point that you made the point about earlier, you said 200 million CDs had already been
237,
paid to you.
yes.
237
yes, yesterday
million
morning.
CDs.
Yes, yesterday morning.
That's what you have received as of now.
Plus the 800. So you know it's 1.1 billion.
Yes, but the 800 was announced today, so I would assume that
yesterday night. It was transferred yesterday night.
So you have the 855 million Ghana cedis.
So you know the transfer process takes time. So once we are notified, we then alert our members to be on the lookout for this money arriving in their accounts.
Right.
And then they will also forward it to the field. Okay. So it takes time. So let me explain. So it doesn't mean that if the transfer was done yesterday, today, the money will get to the field for it to be paid, because you need to transfer through the commercial banks. Some will continue with the rural banks, so that wherever the farmers are, we can then draw down the money and
but it's good clarity, because that's what I was trying to establish, because you mentioned the 237 earlier. So that you had received earlier, the 237, and you started paying. But then you indicate that you are expecting Cocoa Board to still look around and raise some money to pay you. Does that mean that this 1.1 billion cedis doesn't settle the total debt owed you? I mean...
No, it doesn't settle it at all. But it is substantial enough for those whose cocoa has been already mobilized to be paid. And those whose cocoa are on drying mats waiting for it to be sent to the purchasing clerk will also need to be addressed. So that is why we are encouraging Cocoa Board to continue to look around for money, so that we continue running the season. Remember, the season has not ended. Yeah.
I see. But what's the total debt? Now that this about 1.1 billion has been paid out of it, what's the total debt?
The total debt, as some commentators keep on mentioning, but when we pick it from the CEO of Cocoa Board, which is in the neighborhood of 11 billion. So that was when 3 weeks ago, neighborhood of 11 billion. So what it means is that when you tabulate the tranches of funds that has been paid, then it means it has reduced, but it is still, what is left is still significant, and therefore we'll continue to engage Cocoa Board to look for more money, so that the cocoa that we've already mobilized will pay, and those that are on drying mats ready to be delivered to our purchasing clerk, we also position ourselves to settle.
I see. But then again, looking at the Bank of Ghana data, it's clear that even the local banks are not extending credit to you, as in you, the LBCs. They are not giving you loans. So how are you pre-financing the cocoa beans? Because I know that the process is that you pre-finance and later you get your money, correct?
Correct.
How are you doing
the
that?
data the data seems challenging. Some of our members are in constant engagement with the commercial banks. What needs to be done is that, as the Bank of Ghana indicated, we need to have a different model for cocoa finance. And that is why the minister was so strong in emphasizing on a bond to finance the cocoa sector. So obviously, we've reached a period where we need to innovate to seamlessly finance our cocoa sector. So the data the Bank of Ghana showed, yes, is right, because the funding of the cocoa sector requires a different and then delicate attention, because the money involved is quite huge, and therefore you need such a position and such effort to make sure that you finance our cocoa sector.
Right.
Yeah.
So Madimado, thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Truly appreciate your time. Samo Demado is the president of the Licensed Cocoa Buyers Association, and they're expecting this 855 million Ghana cedis, as announced by Honorable Isaac Adongo earlier today, to hit the account in the coming days. Now we know the full picture of what Cocoa Board and by extension government is having to deal with. But this is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, after this quick break, the Minister of Education is warning it will take all necessary action to protect teachers on secondary school campuses. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook. Ministry of Education is warning it will take all necessary action to protect teachers on secondary schools, campuses, and this comes on the back of what we saw earlier in the week involving students of the West African Senior High School, that's WAS, and then also a teacher of the school. 3 persons have been arrested and standing trial for this particular incident. But it's just pointers of the Ministry of Education statement they released earlier today. The Ministry of Education expresses serious concern over the rising incidents of assault on teachers in some schools across the country. Saying the individuals, including students who attack a teacher in the lawful performance of their duties, will face severe consequences under Ghanaian law. The ministry supports legal action against all perpetrators in reported cases. In the Kede Senior High Technical School incident, the accused persons were arrested, pleaded guilty to assault-related charges, and were convicted and fined. The ministry condemns the violent incidents recorded at the Superzonal Sports Competition in the Eastern Region, noting that suspects have been arrested while victims are receiving medical and psychological support. At the West Africa Senior High School, 2 students and 1 accomplice were arraigned and remanded for assaulting a teacher. That's the video we just played to you, okay? This West Africa Senior High School incident. It's quite a troubling development, which the Education Ministry has had cause to issue a statement on it, raising concern about what must be done to address this matter once and for all. Well, before we go, First Deputy Majority Whip is calling for enhanced security and safety standards at public and private health facilities, the aftermath of the baby theft at Mamprobi Polyclinic. This was just a little over an hour ago. First Deputy Majority Whip Comfort Doyo Kojo says there must be enhanced security, including strict access control at the public and private health facilities nationwide to address cases of baby theft in hospitals. Take a look.
My appreciation goes to the police officers and the gender minister whose diligence, sensitivity, and professionalism brought this distress incident to a safe and reassuring conclusion. It is important that effective steps are taken to enhance security measures across public and private health facilities nationwide. Hospitals and clinics must strengthen access control, surveillance systems, and staff vigilance to foster similar incidents in the future.
If we allow people to just pop in at any time in the hospitals, that is when we have unguided situations where a visitor can just come and steal babies away. It is very disheartening to note that a mother, having carried a baby for 9 months, comes in, have a child, and even look at the condition in which he was in. The temperature rise and all that. It's something that any mother will feel strongly about. It is important. It is my wish and my plea that the administrators of these hospitals would take a very serious view of this situation and ensure that the measures that they are going to take will take immediate effect and it will not be delayed.
Well, there's some concern which we are following quite closely to get some updates on, because tomato traders here in Ghana are warning of a price surge as a result of the Burkina Faso attacks, which has disrupted the supply of tomatoes. You know that we import millions of Ghana cedis worth of tomatoes from Burkina Faso, and that's a troubling development. But earlier today in Parliament, there was heated banter in Parliament, both the minority and the majority taking firm positions on the recent attacks on Ghanaian tomato farmers, that's traders in the northern part of Burkina Faso. Take a look.
And what intelligence was picked up by the people whose job it is to ensure that these intelligence are picked up and Ghanaians traveling to these hot zones are warned ahead of time. What safe passage arrangements were put in place to ensure that Ghanaians traveling to these hotspots were accompanied if indeed they had to go and return?
Let us separate politics from some of the realities. What happened was wrong. It is a terrorist situation, and I know from the briefing I had was that our country did whatever they could, and we are still working with people to make sure that the rest of the people in Burkina Faso are protected. You travel across the globe. How many times did you report yourself to the mission? Mr. Speaker, yes, our compatriots went to Burkina Faso to trade in tomatoes and other things. Unfortunately, the problem between Mali and Burkina Faso, the area where the thing happened was clearly an isolated place that terrorists have operated there before.
Security experts indicated immediately the president of Burkina Faso, General Ibrahim Traoré, became a special guest at the inauguration of President Mahama. And I'm not saying it. Security experts indicated, Mr. Speaker, that Ghanaians were going to become targets. And indeed, these traders, Mr. Speaker, let's ask ourselves the fundamental question. These traders are not combatants. These traders do not play any role in the conflict in Burkina Faso. These traders do not pose any threat. So why were they attacked? Mr. Speaker, I think our friends from the other side should agree with us for us to have this bipartisan inquiry, to assemble the facts, and to have the situation unraveled in a bipartisan and objective.
You'll find more of this on 3news.com, also on TV3 Ghana on YouTube. Join the New Day team tomorrow morning, and also 3FM 92.7 Sunrise tomorrow morning as well. I am Alfred Consey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso in